Not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
It's a dead heat right now. I mean, it's going to be a toss-up.
Tonight on Politics Now, one-on-one with the governor. Steve Sisolak outlines why he says he deserves another 4 years in office.
They should have been paying their employees the right way all along and offering health insurance.
Breaking down the ballot questions, a closer look at what could change from the minimum wage to how we vote.
Groups are all continually trying to get people to turn out and vote, and one way is to use social pressure.
You're probably getting more mail than usual right now, but some people are questioning one particular flyer you may have seen. The 8 News Now investigators dig for answers.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now.
Thank you for joining us here on Politics Now. I'm John Langler. We're a little more than a week away from the election, and the races are really heating up. The race for governor is one of several neck-and-neck contests right now. This week, I sat down with Governor Steve Sisolak about his re-election campaign. So let's just talk about the campaign overall. Obviously, the polls show that it's neck and neck between you and your opponent. A lot of the races are that way right now. Talk about where you think your campaign is in the race to re-election with just a couple of weeks left.
Well, it's a dead heat right now. I mean, it's going to be a toss-up. We're working hard, got a tremendous field operation going. Hundreds, if not thousands, of volunteers across the state are getting out there, knocking on doors, making phone calls, and the biggest thing is going to be turnout. We got to get people turned out to vote. We've ID'd people and registered people, so now we got to make sure that they vote before Election Day, whether they vote by mail, early voting, or in person. They've got a lot of options, and in fact, people that aren't even registered, we encourage them, you can show up to the polls until the polls close on Election Day and still register to vote.
You know, I think a lot of political scientists would say the incumbent sort of has the inherent advantage when they're running for re-election, and yet you in a lot of the polling, it's either neck and neck or you're a point down, a point here and there, you know, within the margin of error. Why do you think you're struggling to sort of maybe reconnect with Nevada voters? Well,
I don't think it's a matter of reconnecting. I think my opponent is funded by one individual that's given $25 million to his campaign. That's unheard of in Nevada politics for one person to put $25 million into a race who didn't like the eviction moratorium that we put in place. And that's unfortunate, but we're confident we can get our message out there. We can't compete with this $25 million donor, but we've got a lot of grassroots support.
You talk about money. A lot of your ads talk about how you want to do all of these things, and some things are already in the works without raising taxes. And a lot of that's from the federal monies getting over the pandemic. If you're reelected, how would a lot of those programs, those efforts that you're pushing forward, stay in existence? Because at some point the money would kind of run out, no?
Oh, certainly the federal money runs out. A lot of the federal money we put into one-shot things like affordable housing, $500 million, $500 million. That won't be up. You know, we'll do what we can. We're looking at a budget surplus coming up for the Economic Forum before the legislature starts. Our economy has recovered faster than anybody anticipated. I mean, we've regained every single job we lost before the pandemic. We've led the country for 6 months, 2 quarters in a row in terms of economic recovery. You've seen the win on the in Nevada, and the gaming win has been over $1 billion, like 18 or 19 months in a row. I mean, we're breaking records, so it's bringing more money into the state, and we'll be able to utilize some of that money to continue what we've done and do some really good things.
You know, when a lot of people say jobs are coming back and unemployment is at such and such level, the dirty numbers below that is also, what are those jobs? Are they being paid as much as they were before the pandemic? And are they making enough to live? The cost of living is going up. How would you, if we were reelected, try and bridge that gap of the rising cost of living in Southern Nevada and all across the state?
Yeah, we've got to get better jobs. There's no doubt about that. We've got 30,000, 40,000 people here still out of work, and they've got 100,000 jobs available. The job skills just aren't matching up with the jobs. We need to do a better job of getting people into more skilled jobs, retraining. I'll give you an example. We've got in the trades, the building trades, the apprenticeship programs, we've got great job opportunities that are available. We just don't have enough people that are skilled, whether it's in the carpentry program, the culinary program, cosmetology, electricians, welding, whatever it might be. If you got a CDL license right now, commercial driver's license, you can write your own ticket. You know, there's such a demand for these operators. So we got to give our young people an opportunity that when they're in high school or middle school, they're deciding what they do. Every kid shouldn't go to college. I mean, they're coming out of college, unfortunately, a lot of these kids with $100,000 worth of student debt and can't find a job. And it's tough to pay that back. So if you get a new skilled trade, you can learn something. You can find your way out of college. And I talked to some folks at the the HVAC company up north where they have an apprenticeship program in sheet metal, and it's a 5-year program. Their kids will earn $360,000 over 5 years and come out with no debt.
There are ads that are out there right now sort of blaming your opponent, the sheriff, for some of the rise in crime. At the same token, the sheriff will bring up the laws that were passed up in Carson City and the measures on crime that have led to, maybe they would suggest, the lack of enforcement or the ability to enforce being hindered. Is there a shared responsibility on the rise in crime between the governor and the sheriff of the biggest county in the state?
Well, I think everybody's got some responsibility, but clearly I signed a bill that the sheriff either supported or was neutral on. I made it clear to the chairman of that committee, and he's written a letter that said to the fact that I told him, if the sheriff can't be in agreement with this, can't support it, I'm not going to sign the bill. The sheriff was okay with it. Now suddenly, when he can't control crime, he's the one who can't control crime, we've got a problem. He's blaming me. He is sitting on $125 million in reserve funds, $125 million, and hasn't had a police academy to train any new officers. We need that money implemented. We need that money out on the street and officers out patrolling our neighborhoods, because people aren't as safe as they were 2 or 4 years ago prior to when he became sheriff. It's a more dangerous community. It's because he's failed in his responsibility as a sheriff.
But on the same token, if you look at state law enforcement, you could talk to people from Nevada State Police. We just saw what happened with the escaped convicted murderer from the correction center in Southern Nevada. That's a state office. Obviously, that's not the Clark County.
Sure.
So that's your responsibility, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the problem we have at the state level, our wages are held in based by legislative function. They set the salaries that we have. We train people, and the sheriff and the police departments hire them away from us because they can get a 30% raise as soon as they leave state police. So we become a training ground for these other agencies. I have committed to doing a salary adjustment for our state police officers at the beginning of next session to bring them up to par with their sister agencies so that we won't be losing all the people. We won't be hemorrhaging this big group of officers who do a great job to these private agencies. Yes, I'm responsible for the state function of that, and the inmate that escaped was the responsibility of our state prison issue. But the crime that you're seeing in your neighborhoods, homicides are up, car thefts are up, rapes and robberies are up. That's the kind of thing that's the responsibility of the sheriff. This is his jurisdiction. I spent 10 years on the Clark County Commission. I was on fiscal affairs for those 10 years. I know we had an officer ratio of 2.0, which is what they'd recommended at the national average. He's fallen way below that, never gotten back up there, because I don't think he had the skill to run the department at the beginning and hasn't put those resources into hiring officers.
You don't think the rise in crime, just last question on this, you don't think the rise in crime is part of more of a nationwide thing? It's not just Las Vegas that's seeing this. It's not just Clark County.
No, it's not just Clark County, but if you look at the 17 counties in the state, Clark County is the highest. I mean, you can deny it. I mean, Las Vegas is driving up the crime rate statistics for the entire state because it's so high in this one county that's bringing up the whole state average. We are, I think the last statistic I saw, I think we're like 6th or 7th in terms of murders per 100,000 people. That's a Las Vegas problem. That's a Clark County Sheriff problem.
Final question here. We just kind of started with this. It's crunch time, obviously. The midterms are just a couple of weeks away. How do you convince voters you deserve 4 more years?
By talking to them, talking about the good things that we've done and what our plans are. We can't control inflation at the state level. I can't control the price of gasoline or the price of a dozen eggs or a pound of ground beef or chicken. That's not something a governor can do. But we can help in other areas. We gave free school lunches to every student in the state of Nevada, breakfast and lunch. And my opponent called that campaign gimmick. We provided $500 million for affordable housing in the state of Nevada. We've put money into child care to make child care more affordable. Put $5 million into free community college for people. We're doing what we can on the state end in order to save people money. Prescription, RX card, that can save up to 80% on prescription drugs. So we're doing what we can on the state end in order to get money back in people's pockets.
Of course, we have also invited Republican gubernatorial candidate and sheriff in Clark County, Joe Lombardo, to appear here as well. So far, we have not heard back. You can find the full interview with Governor Sisolak on 8newsnow.com. There are also 3 ballot initiatives this year on your midterm ballot. One of the most contentious is question 3. It would create open primaries and ranked choice voting in our elections. Here's a brief explainer of how it would work. First, it creates an open primary, meaning you can vote for anyone on the ticket. Right now, you can only vote for Republicans if you're a Republican or Democrats if you're a Democrat. The top 5 would then go on to the general election. In the general election, you would rank them 1 through 5. If someone gets more than 50% in the general election, they win. If no one gets 50%, it goes to an instant runoff. The candidate with the fewest votes gets eliminated. Their second choice gets their votes, and that continues until someone has 50%. There's also Question 2, which aims to simplify our minimum wage. Nevada's minimum wage is already going up a bit every year, but as we found out, supporters of the measure, well, they want it to go up the same for everyone. Back in 2019, Nevada lawmakers agreed the state's minimum wage should go up. Assembly Bill 456 created a 75-cent increase every year until 2024. In July, it went up to $10.50 an hour, or $9.50 an hour. That discrepancy is based on whether an employer offers health insurance, and supporters of Question 2 want it gone.
They should have been paying their employees the right way all along and offering health insurance.
Annette Magnus is with Battleborn Progress. She says Question 2 makes minimum wage fair. If approved, instead of 2 different increases, everything stays the same.
That's just what employers are going to have to do. They're going to have to pay a living wage to continue to attract good employees.
Magnus says many employers are simply offering bad health insurance. That way they can pay workers $1 an hour less. She believes with the Affordable Care Act, companies can't take advantage anymore.
There is no reason that a business in 2022 should not be able to pay the minimum wage.
The current format, we believe, works for Nevada employers and employees.
Paul Muradkhan is with the Vegas Chamber.
This is redundant and not necessary to amend the state constitution while we're already seeing that's the current state law.
He points out Nevada's average hourly wage is already $28 an hour. Instead, he believes money should go towards job training programs.
Market demand will drive the salaries, especially for qualified workers. And I think that the bigger issue for the chamber in this conversation is that we're focusing on the wrong solution for the problem.
This measure already passed in the state legislature twice, putting it on the ballot this year. If approved, it would create one $12 an hour minimum wage by 2024. Again, the measure would adjust the minimum wage annually for inflation after 2024, and if it passes this time, it would go into the state constitution. All right, well, early voting is, of course, already underway here in Nevada. As of Thursday morning, more than 50,000 people have cast a ballot here in Clark County. That's much lower than the early voting turnout back in 2018. It averaged more than 26,000 votes cast every day. That again back in 2018. Nye County officials will allow the public to view hand counting of mail-in ballots. They'll be one of the first in the country to let you watch hand counting. However, if you're going to do this, observers have to sign a form first, agreeing not to release any information before Election Day. There is still a legal challenge from the ACLU on this at the Nevada Supreme Court. If you need help getting registered to vote, we have you covered. There's a guide to help you with registration, early voting sites, and information on how to vote by mail. You can find that at 8newsnow.com. Cannabis is no longer regulated as a classified substance in Nevada. That means research efforts can proceed easier. The 8th Judicial District Court made that ruling this week. Previously, the State Board of Pharmacy listed cannabis as a Schedule I drug. That's defined as having no accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. But medical researchers have argued the classification hinders research for cannabis and marijuana products. Next year on Politics Now, differing stances on public safety. Nevada's Attorney General and the woman running to take his position share their views on criminal justice reform. Plus, the 8 News Now investigators look into a curious election mailer you may have gotten. Is it
for you is what I'll do.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
Just like the governor's race, Nevada's race for Senate is very, very close. And as you see here this week, Donald Trump Jr. hosted a rally in Henderson. This was Tuesday night for Republican Senate challenger Adam Laxalt. Also on Tuesday, incumbent Democratic Senator Catherine Cortez Masto joined first-time and new American voters over at East Las Vegas Library. These pictures coming from the Cortez Masto campaign. After voting, the group went to a Latino-owned restaurant to discuss the pandemic survival. Another contentious race in Nevada, it is the one for Attorney General. This week we heard from Republican candidate Sigal Chattah. One topic she is focused on is changing criminal justice reform, a bill that was passed here in Nevada back in 2019.
It increased habitual offenders, the definition of a habitual offender, from a 2-time felon to a 5-time tough felon. I find that very disturbing. Okay, our streets are obviously now being flooded with habitual offenders.
Chattah says if she is elected, she'll reverse the changes made from that measure. Last week, we also heard from current Attorney General Aaron Ford, and he defended the bill's passage.
We got everyone in the room at the exact same time, law enforcement with the ACLU, public defenders with the district attorneys, you name it. We were in there working, and we were able to craft bills that passed unanimously. Every Republican in the Assembly, every Democrat, every Republican in the Senate and Democrat and the governor signed it, and that's how you enhance public safety.
Nevada has many of the most watched races in the country right now, and one national group is trying to get Democrats to the polls, but with a questionable strategy. 8 News Now investigator Vanessa Murphy reports.
Some Nevadans are receiving this mailer about the November 8th election stating who you vote for is private, but whether you vote is a matter of public record. We will be reviewing public records after the election to determine whether or not you joined your neighbors in voting.
That's actually a tactic that's been used by groups to try to actually encourage people to vote.
Dan Lee is an associate professor of political science at UNLV. He points to research showing this strategy works. A 2008 Yale study concluded social pressure increases voter turnout.
We know that a lot of people don't vote, especially in midterm elections. They don't think their vote counts, that it matters. So groups are all, continually trying to get people to turn out and vote. And one way is to use social pressure.
Could it work the opposite, though, of rubbing a voter the wrong way?
Yeah, so this particular flyer, it does seem a little aggressive.
And that's similar to what the Nevada Secretary of State's office is saying. When we reached out about the mailer, a spokesperson wrote in an email, while it seems aggressive, it does not appear to meet the threshold for voter intimidation. So who's behind it? America Votes, a left-leaning Washington, D.C.-based political action committee. There is a local division which in this 2022 overview released Tuesday states it's working to re-elect Catherine Cortez Masto for Senate, Steve Sisolak for governor, and the slate of progressive candidates up and down the ballot.
I think voter turnout is especially important for Democrats in Nevada this year because, Biden's approval ratings are low. So Republicans have a lot of motivation to turn out to the polls. Not so much for the case for Democrats. That's kind of a concern for Democrat campaigns, is trying to get the turnout, trying to get their supporters to turn out and vote.
We reached out to America Votes, and a spokesperson wrote in part, there is a lot at stake in this election, and we encourage everyone to make their voice heard. We requested an interview and additional information. For example, how many of these ballots were sent to Nevadans? We haven't received a response yet. Vanessa Murphy, 8 News Now.
Next on Politics Now, helping Americans save money. We'll talk about some changes announced by the Biden administration to eliminate something that we all deal with. Plus, a closer look at other tight political races across the country on Politics Now.
watching Politics Now.
The White House is looking to save you some money by eliminating what it's calling junk fees. The Biden administration says corporations are raking in hundreds of billions of dollars a year from hidden add-ons and extra fees. That would come from something like an airline seat, cable bills, concert tickets. So new guidelines being proposed will make certain practices illegal.
They're unfair and they hit marginalized Americans the hardest, especially low-income folks and people of color. They benefit big corporations, not consumers, not working families. And that changes now.
The administration is also pushing companies to show the full cost of a ticket up front. That way, you're not surprised by a different cost when you check out. We're also keeping an eye on early voting elsewhere. There are several key races with the balance of power in Washington, D.C. very much up in the air. Natalie Brand reports.
For the second time this month, another woman is accusing Georgia Senate candidate Herschel Walker of paying for her abortion. Going by Jane Doe, she spoke to reporters over a Zoom call.
He encouraged me to have an abortion and gave me the money to do so.
The new allegation comes as more than 1 million Georgians have already voted in the key contest between Walker and Democratic incumbent Raphael Warnock.
I am a registered independent, and I voted for Donald Trump in both elections.
The accuser, who came forward Wednesday, called Walker a hypocrite for his anti-abortion stance. She says she had a 6-year relationship with Walker while he was still married and playing in the NFL. Her lawyer, Gloria Allred, shared what she claimed was evidence, including cards, a photo, and this recording.
I want to say I love you and I was thinking about you.
Walker has denied the allegations.
I've already told people this is a lie and I'm not going to entertain.
Georgia is one of 5 toss-up states that will determine which party controls the U.S. Senate. Another is Pennsylvania, where voters saw the only debate between Democrat John Fetterman and Republican Mehmet Oz on Tuesday. Fetterman, who suffered a stroke in May, appeared to struggle to communicate at times.
Again, my doctors, the real doctors that I believe in, they all believe that I'm ready to be served.
But his supporters are apparently rallying behind him. The campaign announced more than $2 million has been raised since the debate.
Pennsylvania deserves better than Fetterman.
Wednesday, Dr. Oz held an event with Nikki Haley, the former South Carolina governor and former President Trump's UN ambassador. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Washington.
Next on Politics Now, we'll take a look at the week ahead in politics.
You're never far from Finley.
This week in What to Watch, we're hearing from you. 8 News Now will once again this coming week, bring you polling results from Emerson College, We'll cover a wide range of topics and look at where opinions stand in the final days of early voting. That'll be Monday here on 8 News Now. Also, we're looking ahead to Election Day. Of course, we are. We're going to have complete coverage for you on election night, bringing you the most up-to-date results. We'll also be live at some key watch parties all across Nevada, from up north all the way here down south. That'll do it for us here on Politics Now. You can stay up to date with all the political news on 8newsnow.com. We're back with you here on 8 News Now next Saturday. Take care.